Katherine finishes inking a gift tag with dark stars and swirls. Then she sits on the golden white brocade sofa and reaches for a plate of belladonna berries. She eats a handful, filling her cheeks, mashing them with her teeth until the poison juice shows at the corners of her lips. Genevieve gasps. She turns towards Natalia, but there is no explanation to give. When Katherine recovered from her wounds, she turned to the poisons and began to devour them. That's a quote from One Dark Throne by Kendare Blake. This is YA Book Chat, and I'm your host, Leah Stuhler. Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of YA Book Chat. It is great to have you here. We are continuing in the Three Dark Crown series by Kendare Blake. Today, we are going to be covering book number 2 in that series, and that is called One Dark Throne. And I am very excited. Christine Coring, who you will remember from the last episode, is here again with me. Hey, Christine, how are you?
I'm good, thank you.
That's good. Well, let's talk about this book because I have a lot of stuff to talk about with this one, and it's really cool. So again, just to remind everybody, we will start off spoiler free, and then I will give you a warning before we head into the spoiler section. In general, overall, I will say I did really like this book. So just so that everybody knows, this is the beginning of the Ascension Year. So now the queens we've gotten to the point where this is the year when the 3 queens have to try and kill each other. And this book kind of brings about some interesting plot twists that I thought was really good. So Katherine is more determined now than ever to win the crown, no matter what the cost is. And we find out that she kind of has this new driving force, this new power, sort of, that's inside of her, that's pushing her even more. Arsinoe, remember, she has her bear, who he's not really her familiar, but he's connected to her through low magic, thanks to magical. So she's got her bear still in the connection with him. But remember, at the end of the first book, we discover she's a poisoner. Arsinoe decides that she wants to test out her poisoner skill in this one. And what's really great about her in the second book, too, is that she is finally not so disheartened and not so down on herself as she was in the first book. And her relationship with Billy in this book kind of begins to change too, and that's really fun to see. Then we have Jules, who discovers a really big secret about herself, and then everybody else discovers it as well. So that's really fun to explore. And then finally, we have Mirabella. Mirabella, remember, at the end of the last book, she believes that Arsinoe attacked her. And so she finally has all these feelings of, I don't care about killing my sisters anymore. Now I want to do it. So she's ready in that aspect. But at the same time, she's getting attacked by one of the other sisters, and it's kind of putting people around her in danger. So that's our quick little synopsis of what's going to happen in this book. I kind of felt like, I don't know about you, Christine, so I really enjoyed this book overall, but there was like just one little aspect of it that kind of annoyed me. We all know in book 1, Joseph, they're not married or whatever, but he essentially, cheats on Jules and his relationship, right, with Mirabella. Book 2 is like a constant flurry of scenes where he is trying to apologize to her. And it kind of drove me crazy because there's just I feel like it was like every other chapter where we were like, Jules and Joseph were having this heart to heart and he's trying to apologize. And she's like, you can't make up for what you've done, blah, blah, blah. I don't know. Did you feel the same way or is this just me?
Yeah. I don't remember being super annoyed by it, but yes, I probably glossed over it, and that's why I wasn't super annoyed by it. I don't have the patience for the teen will they, won't they, fix their situation. We have bigger things going on, everybody.
Agreed.
You know what I mean? And I'm kind of just ready to wash my hands of him after the whole thing from the last book anyway. So yes, I was probably annoyed at the time and blocked it lovingly from my memory because it didn't serve the book in any kind of a way.
No, exactly. It's just kind of one of those, it's a young adult book. So you have this teen relationship that's up and down because all of them have at least one. And so this is them. This is their up and down. So we have these scenes, and that's kind of just part of it and how it goes. So I will say, though, this is the first book in this series, not the last, because there are 4 books, but this is the first one where we do lose somebody. In this, one of our characters is gone by the end of this book. And so that was kind of interesting. I feel like she let us into this one lightly. You know what I mean? Like, this is kind of like, we're going to get rid of one person and we're just going to do it gently to kind of ease us into like the more forceful bits of book 3 and 4. But I don't know. We'll talk more about that when we get there. Well, that's really, I'm afraid, probably really as far as we can do without too many spoilers. So if you have not read this book yet and you don't want it to be spoiled for you yet, then you may want to stop listening and come back after you have finished it. But if you have read it, of course, continue on listening. Or if you haven't read it and don't care about the spoilers, then please keep listening. All right. So here we go. So, at the end of the first book, Genevieve kind of gets sent away by Natalia, and she has to leave Gravesdrake Manor. Well, she comes back, and she is shocked to see Katherine doing so well. And Katherine decides she wants to create poisoned gifts to send to Rowlands for Mirabella. So this is what I was hinting at a little bit earlier. She boxes up and sends like poisoned gloves and dresses and jewels and foods and like all of these things. Well, she tells Genevieve and Natalia, because they're like, don't you think this is a bit much if you're not going to, they're like, they're not going to kill her because they're not going to even get to her. And Katherine says, oh, they're only a little bit of fun. And I feel like this was kind of our little bit of foreshadowing here right away at the very beginning of what Katherine is about to become. Like, because she definitely becomes really nasty in this book. Don't you think so?
Mm-hmm. Yes. And I think we talked about at the end of the last book that we were talking about is that you really felt like when she came back after everything had happened, like that's when she was stronger and she was like, oh, I own this now. And so I felt like starting the next book with that same kind of power, like made a lot of sense for her because she, for the first time, like too much, she was like, I'm going to do what I want and have my fun now because she hadn't had fun with any of this ever, basically.
Right. And what's crazy too is now she is like really, even though her poisoner gift is not strong, because as we've just discovered, she's not really a poisoner, although she doesn't really know that yet. She forces herself to eat more poison than usual, and she's pretty much damaging her body. And I love this quote. It says, the belladonna berries roll in Katherine's stomach, but she does not wince. It has been more than a month since she had to claw her way out of the heart of the island, and now she can withstand anything. So she's like, I was thrown into the Brecca domain. I survived. I came back out, and now I can do whatever I want. So that's kind of the approach that she takes in this whole book. The other interesting thing too is here right at the beginning, she sends a letter asking Peter to return. I was kind of like, that's a little foreboding because, he was the one who pushed her in. So you're kind of like, right. What's she going to do to him when he gets there?
Yes.
I don't know. I was like, were you kind of thinking like, ooh, this could be good? I get excited.
I was hoping, yes. Yes, hoping, definitely. Because he was like on her side and doing all these things, and then he shoved her in, and I'm like, oh no, we need to have some revenge on that.
Revenge and explanation, right?
Yes.
Like, why was he doing that? I want to know why.
But if I'm her, I'm going straight to revenge. I'm like, I don't even need your explanation. Like, I was looking at it from her, but she's like, oh no, you're going to come back here and we're going to see what's going on.
Oh yeah, she totally just wants revenge on him. She doesn't care why. She's like, you betrayed me. You pushed me down there and left me to die. So it's your turn now. So we'll see. But we'll see more of that later, which is really fun. So Arsinoe finds out that she's going to have 2 suitors coming to her to Wolf Spring. So she's like super excited that she just discovered that she's a poisoner. So she gets a book on poisons and she wants to learn more about her gift. She starts eating some of it even because she's like, oh, I want to try this out. So this is kind of funny at the beginning. She eats some hemlock And what's funny is like, this is a perfect description of poisoners, because it says the hemlock does not taste good, yet it tastes satisfying. What she feels chewing poison must be something like Jules feels when she ripens an apple, or Mirabella feels when she calls the wind. So it's really cool because Arsinoe finally gets this feeling of, yes, this is what it feels like to have a gift and use it. But then Billy comes to see her and he tries to kiss her and she wants to kiss him and she's leaning in, but then she remembers that she just ate the hemlock. So she has to pull away so that she doesn't kiss him and poison him, which thank God she remembered that, right? Because we can't lose Billy right there. That would be horrible. So she just kind of makes some kind of excuse when she pulls away, and he doesn't know yet what's going on. But it's great because we see here too, they have this really cute conversation, and he says he told his dad he's refusing to court Katherine and Mirabella like his dad wants, and he tells her, of course, because he wants to be with her. And I found myself from the beginning just really rooting for this relationship to kind of develop and blossom more. How about you?
Mm-hmm. That was the one, like, it felt pure, it felt nice, it felt right. It was only one really from the first book that didn't have like these ulterior motives and stuff. So it was like easy to root for.
Yeah, I agree. It really was. So then we find out more about Mirabella, right? Well, so Mirabella in this book is like, she's kind of torn because she feels really hurt that Arsinoe tried to kill her with the bear. So now she feels like, okay, well, now I'm ready. Now I have to kill her. So Mirabella gets so impatient that she decides she can't wait and she wants to do it right away. So her and Elizabeth and Bree leave, and they're going to go to Wolf Spring to find Arsinoe. And I don't remember, there's like Luke. A friend of Luke's was traveling, and he found out that Mirabella was doing this. And so he came and he told Luke, and so they got word ahead of time. Well, Arsinoe was like, well, I don't want this to happen here in Wolf Spring. I don't want her to come here. So she decides she's going to fight her off and goes out to find Mirabella. And she brings, and this is really important for later on, she gets nightshade, this poison, and she puts it on her dagger to bring with her because she doesn't know, what's going to happen. And then she brings her bear with her too. The nightshade on the dagger is something that we need to remember for later on because she accidentally causes an incident. She's an example of, like, you're just learning something new, and sometimes people get so excited about things, but you're like, you really need to take it slow. And then they don't. And then something bad happens. You know what I mean? Like,
well, I think they say like a new poisoner is a sloppy poisoner because like you don't know the like ways the poison can actually hurt somebody. So the thing like where she did almost kiss Billy and like where those things are not just part of her second nature at this point. And so she's a little messy.
Yeah. So that comes up a little bit later. But before that too, what happens is, so we start getting hints at Jules. Because remember, so I said Jules discovers this secret about herself. And Madrigal and Kate is Jules's grandmother, so she's Madrigal's mom. They have this conversation and they say, we should have told her. And they say, you've seen what's happened since the Ascension Year began, how her temper grows, the bear she killed without touching, and how many broken plates have there been, how many vases knocked off tables. So it sounds like Jules has like a really bad temper, right? But you're like, but that's all that we get right away. And then we finally discover her big secret, which is that she has what's called the Legion curse. So she's a naturalist and a like ridiculously strong naturalist, but she also is war gifted. So the war gifted people, they can do whatever. Like she killed a bear without touching it. She can scream and like stuff shatters and falls before her, and she can knock over trees with her voice and all these crazy things. And so what happens is if somebody is Legion cursed, so they have two gifts, it can make them go mad. And so actually what we find out is when Jules was born, the seer who is there, that's the one who can, see into the future, they told Madrigal to drown Jules because that's what they did. If there was a baby born war gifted, or like in her case with the Legion curse, they're like, nope, just drown him because it's bad. She's going to go crazy. This isn't going to be good for anybody. But Madrigal refused. And because she's magical, she bound Jules's Legion curse using low magic. And so she used her own blood and Jules's blood to bind them together and to bind the curse to her. So as long as magical is alive and well and doing great, then curse won't go away. So what were your thoughts on this Legion curse?
I mean, I loved it. I liked that there was something up, because obviously she's so powerful. And even before she had like the war gift powers, I mean, she was always just so powerful. So that there was something else. But I thought it was interesting that Madrigal had used low magic to tie it to her, and Jules has always been so anti her mom using the low magic. She didn't know about this, right? Because it was there when she was a baby or whatever. And so it's interesting to me that she always had that negative feeling about it when her life was kind of made possible by it, because they didn't drown her and they did this low magic to bind it to her and to try to protect her. And so kind of came full circle with that a little bit.
Yeah, it definitely did. I hadn't really thought about that before, how she hates it so much. And yet that's kind of what's keeping her sane, really. That's a good point.
Right. And so it was kind of funny because I was like, oh, is she going to have like an appreciation for low magic now? Will she be more understanding of like Madrigal's impulses for using it? Because like if I'm a mom that I feel like I've used low magic to save my child's life, I'm going to have a different perspective about it.
The funny thing is that Jules still really doesn't, like throughout the book, she really still doesn't change her opinion of her mother.
Right.
And she doesn't change her opinion of the low magic either.
Yeah.
She just doesn't care. She's like, whatever. She's just, I think, feels so scarred from her past and what's happened and how she was treated that she just is still very, she's very hurt and angry. She's very angry. And then later too, we kind of get a glimpse at how strong her war gift really is, because she, you know, she goes to stop Arsinoe from meeting Mirabella, and she's out there and Joseph's trying to stop her and they're yelling. She screams and it says the trees are quaking, branches rain down, stabbing the ground like knives. And she's like, and everyone like stops and she's looking around and she's like, what was that? And Joseph says, I think that was you. Like, he didn't even know, but he just from her scream. So, I mean, she really is. I'm telling you, I kept, even in this second book as I was reading it, and you mentioned this, we talked about this in the first one, I was just like, I don't understand why she's not a queen. Like, is she, like, what is going on?
Exactly.
She's so powerful. And they always talk about how,
and I wonder if, I was gonna say, and I wonder, like, that's part of what made me wonder if, like, that's why they drown those babies, so that they couldn't, like, usurp the queen. Because if they have so much power, like, did they want to get them out of the picture so that the queens were never, like, had somebody try to be a contender for the throne?
yeah, that's true. That's a really good point. That could be possible. It's another reason why they do that. So later, Madrigal says that she thinks, you know, maybe they should unbind the curse. And so this becomes like a whole point of contention throughout the book. I mean, we go back and forth with this all throughout the whole book, where Madrigal's like, maybe we should unbind it, and Jules is like, I don't know. They always say everybody goes crazy. And so it's just kind of another thing that kind of brings distance between Jules and her mother. And I feel like there's just always going to be this distance between them, you know?
Yes, this book did nothing for their relationship. There was a lot started to add up and snowball.
So, well, Katherine gets a suitor. She has one suitor. His name is Nicholas, and he's going to be courting her, and she meets him and, you know, goes through all the formalities with him. And she's kind of like, because the whole thing with Peter, you know, is over and she's really pissed at him, she's trying to the best of her situation with Nicholas. So there's whole that. Well, then Billy comes to see Arsinoe, and he tells her that his father was really mad because he refused to court the queens. And so his father sold him to the Westwoods as his punishment. So essentially, he has to go to Roland and be Mirabella's royal taster. You know, he's not going to be her suitor. He's not there to try and be her king consort. laboratory. He's there to like test all of her food before she eats it to make sure that it's not poison. So, and then him and Arsinoe have this, like, they have this really sweet moment, but then it's also really funny because they're talking and they argue because of course she doesn't want him to leave. And he's like, well, I don't really have a choice. And so then he like, he's caressing her face. He kisses her on the forehead. He doesn't kiss her on the lips. He kisses her on the forehead. And then he starts to walk away and he turns around and he says, I'll be back soon, but just in case I die, I want you to remember that you could have kissed me that day in the meadow. So he's like, remember that day you pulled away from me? Yeah, you should have kissed me. Haha, I'm going to tease you now. And now you got to wait till I get back, So it's just kind of a fun, cute little moment between the two of them. So then Joseph decides that he's going to go with Billy because he wants to see Mirabella to tell her that things are over between them. And, Jules is of course really mad. And then he says, that's all I'm going to do. And he's like, do you trust me? And she says, not one bit. And who can blame her?
Well, like, what is the purpose of it? Like, I'm going to tell her it's over. It never started. Like, this isn't like he was in like a long affair with Mirabella where he's like, I need to go break it off with her. Like, bro, like she should figure it out on her own by now. If you really need to like write a note and send it with Billy. So I was kind of like, oh, you have to go see her. I just did not like that. I was like,
no. And that was Jules's point. Exactly. It's stupid. It's stupid. So Katherine is getting to know her suitor, right? And they have a feast to welcome him. And she's talking to him. And we have this interesting sentence that she says that ends up being a really big foreshadowing for what's to come later. She says, I have been eating poison since I was a child. Now I am practically made of it. And it's funny because when I first read this, I was like, oh, okay. I didn't think about it too much. And then when I read it again, as I was rereading it for this, I was like, oh my gosh, right there. Like that's complete foreshadowing for what happens later, which since we're doing spoilers, I mean, we could talk about that now. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
So Katherine ends up sleeping with her suitor, Nicholas, later, and he dies because she is so made of poison. It's ridiculous. And I was like, I feel like I should have seen that coming because this line right at the beginning here kind of hints at it. But then I was still like, oh my gosh, like she totally made herself poison.
And then I worry about like, it makes me so sad though, because there's so many times where like they're so close to something like decent happening in their lives. And they're like, oh no, we're going to take that away real quick. So, I mean, it wasn't like the world's most ideal thing, but she was like, oh, this is all going to work out. I will be fine with this arrangement. And it's like, oh, no, let's kill him real quick. Yeah. It's just like, there's so much like almost resolution in these books.
That is very true because that happens a lot. And
like, and I don't think we even talked about it, but like even in the very beginning of this book, when Arsinoe gets her first two suitors and she's like stunned she has any, and then she accidentally poisons them.
Yeah, she
does.
That
was at the very, very beginning.
They hold a feast in Wolf Spring for the suitors. And so
almost good happened with them.
Yeah. So the suitors, they're cousins and they, like to compete against each other. So that's why they're both there. She had her knife that had the poison on it in her vest of her clothes. Well, she tussles with Braddock and the bear and she's playing with him and the knife falls out, but she doesn't realize it. And then one of the suitors had picked it up and he's using it to cut his food and eat it with. And then he passes it on. That's right. And so then his cousin used it and then they all of a sudden are like, they're doubled over and they die. And, Arsinoe realizes it, that her knife is gone and she looks and she realizes too late what happened. And it's just insane. But everybody blames Katherine. They say, oh, she poisoned them because she doesn't want Arsinoe to have suitors. But it was really Arsinoe's fault. But nobody knows that except for her and Jules. And she's like totally destroyed about it.
So like, well, because she almost had good news for like once in her entire life. Because she's had nothing going for her for like ever. There's no discernible skills, like no suitors really. And she's like, I've got two suitors. And then she's like,
oops, I just killed them. I know. I felt so bad for her when that happened though. It was really, really sad. Well, and then Jules, this is where her snowball of destroying her relationship with her mother gets a little bit bigger because she finds out Well, Arsinoe finds a love charm that Madrigal made for her and Matthew. Matthew, remember, is Joseph's older brother who was in a relationship with Jules's Aunt Cara. But Madrigal has made a love charm to be with him and has been with him, because then we find out that Madrigal is pregnant with Matthew's baby.
No.
Ooh. I was really kind of angry for Jules with this
that
one.
That pushed me so far over an edge. And for Cara, for both of them. Like, sister is off living on her own in seclusion because she took somebody else's, like, punishment. And then you go and sleep with her ex, whose brother is dating your kid. Like, the whole twisted, it was too incestual for me, where I was like, no, like, should not be a mother-daughter duo. Like, that is a disgusting double date I don't need to see. Like, no, it's not okay.
No, it's just, it's just unacceptable that her mother did that, because she talks about in the book how, well, actually I think Jules has said, that her mom was always jealous of Cara and that she always wanted what she had. Madrigal always wanted what Cara had, and she couldn't leave anything. Like, she even took Matthew, and then she has his baby. So it's just like another thing that Madrigal is kind of, she's selfish. She's just really being selfish in this way. And that's one of Jules's, like, I think one of the biggest stumbling blocks in their relationship is how selfish Madrigal can be. It was very frustrating. So Natalia and Genevieve are getting really stressed out about everything. And, they're just not sure how things are going to go. And Katherine is acting weird. So Natalia has the idea to help kind of make things a little bit easier for them. She wants to bring all three girls together for the Midsummer Festival. And she wants, because, Katherine wants to kill them both, of course. So they want the festival to be in the capital and bring them all together and make it easy for her to kill them. So they start to kind of put this whole plan into action. Well, then Billy is with Mirabella. And by the way, we find out Billy is apparently a very horrible cook. Not only is he tasting the food, he's also cooking it, and he's horrible at it. So I really like how Kendare Blake puts in these humorous moments in here with Billy. It just makes him that more sweet, lovable, and fun character. And it kind of, he's our comedic character who breaks up the heavy tension in the book, Mm-hmm. But Mirabella is, really upset and talking about the whole thing with Arsinoe. And so Billy says, he basically calls her a dummy. He's like, you're being stupid. He's like, Arsinoe did not send Braddock after you. And so he kind of explains what happened, and that Jules did it because of Joseph and her. And then Mirabella's like, oh, whoops. She kind of goes back to her feeling bad about things. So then we get our regular Mirabella back. I was like, oh, thank the Lord. It's about time. I was glad that he finally told her what was going on. But one of my favorite scenes in the whole book is when Peter decides to come to see Katherine. He answers her letter and he comes to down to see her, and she confronts him. And I was like, oh, this scene's going to be really good. I'm super excited for this scene.
Yes.
So she comes there, she's like got a knife to his neck, and she's like, what were you doing? Why were you trying to kill me? Blah, blah, blah. He says he thought that he had to do it so that she wouldn't be killed by Luca. Because see, he knew that Luca, remember, had that whole plan to kill Katherine and Arsinoe so that Mirabella could be queen. And he thought that if it went bad, that Katherine was going to meet him there at the Brecca Domain. But he didn't know that Natalia's whole plan and that Katherine actually did really well at the quickening ceremony. So she got there and he didn't know. And he was like, well, I didn't want you to be killed by Luca, so I would rather that I was the one to kill you than anybody else.
It was a horrible, horrible explanation.
Yeah, and Katherine didn't buy it. It says, it was a crime what he did. It was a betrayal. She should slash his throat and watch his blood pool around her legs. Instead, she draws back and throws the knife into the wall. Okay, and here, I love the descriptive words, because you just get such a visual of like, this is what's going through Katherine's head, that she's just picturing herself slitting his throat and all of his blood dripping out.
Yeah.
Which just shows you again how violent she's becoming. But, and he kind of deserved that, but she doesn't. I kind of really wanted her to kill him in that moment. Mm-hmm. Is that bad? Like,
No.
I was like, what are you doing? Why? You finish it. But she didn't. Boo.
And
But
no, I mean he threw her into a pit to die. Like there should be no reprieve for him. Like
no coming back from this. And yet she doesn't kill him.
especially with that awful explanation. Like that was awful. That was one of the worst explanations he could give.
Yeah, it was really bad.
Someone else was going to kill you, so I thought I would do it instead.
Really? How about just trying to save me in a different way? Take me away somewhere. Kill the person who's trying to kill me instead of killing me. Like, really? Yeah.
Ask how the ceremony went. Like before you like use some intel.
That would have been a really good start right there. But then the funny thing is,
He's like, how'd it go? And she's like, I did great.
Done.
We're out of it.
No he's getting thrown.
It was lovely meeting you here. Let's hang out. Like he could have gotten himself out of this situation.
But he didn't. But she kind of decides to punish him a different way because, like, they argue and he tells her that he still loves her no matter what. And she says, oh, how you must love me, Peter, but you will never have me again. And then throughout the whole rest of the book, she does nothing but go out of her way to essentially use Nicholas, her suitor, and make Peter jealous. And I mean, like the whole rest of the book is just with Nicholas and Peter constantly competing for Katherine and her affections. And Katherine really kind of thrives on it. Like she loves it. She loves making him uncomfortable and punishing Peter in that way. Because it is like, yeah, she could have killed him and that would have been that. But I feel like this is more fun for her in an evil, fun way. But because she gets to torture him. So yeah.
Yes. I just always get worried in those situations, especially in young adult books, that it will become like an enemies turn to lovers situation again. And so like the whole time I'm on edge where I'm like, do not let him weasel his way back in, like it gives me a little bit of anxiety that they're going to make a choice I do not like.
Oh man. All right. So everybody gets news about the Midsummer Festival, and that, I'm sorry, I think I spoke wrong earlier. The Midsummer Festival is going to be held in Wolf Spring, and then they'll have the last festival in the capital. But anyway, so the Summer Festival comes. Katherine goes, she brings, and this is what it says, long, sharp pikes, perfect for skewering through the hide of a bear. So clearly, she has plans to hurt Braddock, which then I was like, no, not the bear, I love him. I feel like a naturalist at heart here because I'm always rooting for the animals, Well, let's see. So Katherine and Mirabella arrive in Wolf Spring for the Midsummer Festival. And I love when Billy and Arsinoe, again, I'm going back to their relationship because it's just so fun. But I love when they see each other. When he gets there, he goes straight to see her. And she leaps up at him, throws her arm around him, her arms around him, and gives him a huge hug. And he says, this is a better welcome than I expected. And she says, don't ruin it by talking. She's like, just give me this moment. Just hold me, Just kind of this cute, fun. I just love their relationship. But then we have, speaking of relationships, we have something that happens that is not so good. And I was kind of mad about this. So, and you tell me what you thought. So Jules and Joseph, again, are together having yet another conversation about their feelings and blah, 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 right? Well, then, they get to the point where Jules finally gives in and she's like, all right, I still love you. I forgive you, blah, blah, blah. They're supposed to be going to the festival because they're supposed to be there to help protecting Arsinoe at the festival. But is that what happens? No, of course not. You want to know why? They decide they're going to sleep together instead. And of course, Jules is all, oh, it's my first time and I'm so excited, right? But I the whole time I was like, am I supposed to be Kendare Blake? Am I supposed to be glad that this is happening or mad? Because I really feel kind of mad because they're abandoning Arsinoe. And that was how I felt about it. How did you feel about it?
I felt also mostly mad because not only were they abandoning Arsinoe, like I am still not okay with Joseph. Like I am still mad at him. If I am still mad at him, then I think Jules should absolutely still be mad at him. This where it's like, oh, I waited so long. And I'm like, oh, remember, he didn't.
Mm-hmm.
And he just left with your best friend's sister. So, like, let's rewind that a little while. Make him suffer a little longer. Like, I am okay with her taking him back someday, but not like this was like a month ago. Like, I am not here. So, yes, I was very annoyed that they slept together and then that they missed taking care of Arsinoe, and then the snowball of everything that happens from that.
Yeah, because what happens right after that is they have this wreath lighting lantern ceremony, right? And at the ceremony, Katherine starts to roll her plan out, and she challenges Arsinoe to lead the three girls, the three queens, into a hunt. And so this is, of course, a huge trap. And, and she wants them to do it right away. And everybody thinks that because she has the bear that she can win, but she's, of course, freaking out, right? So she doesn't even say anything, but Kate, Jules' grandmother, says, okay, we accept. Queens go and prepare. So, Arsinoe just runs off. She tells Luke, go find Jules and Joseph. And she just runs off to go because she wants to get into the woods first. Everybody else is getting ready. They're getting their weapons. What Arsinoe doesn't realize is that as part of the rules for the hunt is that you can have companions with you. So she ran off by herself. And then Bree and Elizabeth go with Mirabella. And then Peter and Nicholas go with Katherine. And actually Margaret, who's a priestess that has a war gift, also goes with her. And so Katherine's got this. She's got a bow and arrow they have poison arrows, and Katherine's got her, daggers and stuff. So it's this whole thing. Like they go through the hunt, they go through this whole thing, and they're in the woods. Mirabella and Bree and Elizabeth are hiding. Katherine finds Braddock, and she shoots Braddock. Arsinoe tries to get away. Like it's just this huge thing that happens, right? So eventually Katherine shoots the poison arrow. She shoots Arsinoe with the poison arrow, and Arsinoe, drops down, and she thinks that. And so Katherine, of course, thinks that she's won. Well, then Jules comes in and she throws Katherine around with her war gift. She grabs Arsinoe, puts her up on Katherine's horse. She takes Katherine's horse, which I thought was fun and appropriate. And then she just runs off and leaves. So, Katherine yells for Peter and Nicholas to go and find her, but of course they can't find Jules. And so it's this whole thing. And Mirabella runs out of the woods and then finds Joseph and the Malones and Billy and tells them, that Arsinoe got shot and that Jules took her. And it's just like, it's chaos. This part of the book was like complete chaos, this whole scene that happens. So it's crazy. And then Katherine comes out of the woods and she tells everybody that Jules is Legion cursed because of how Jules threw her with her voice. And so the reason that is bad is because those who have the Legion curse, because they do go mad, they are looked down upon and people are scared of them. So if she gets caught, if whoever, the priestesses or whoever decide that or the Black Council want to, they can take Jules, they can arrest her and counsel her and then lock her up and pretty much essentially put her to death. So now Jules kind of has a target on her head as well. So, there's that. And then the poisoners decide that they're going to take Braddock. So they take Braddock with them. So this whole thing, and then, we don't know what's going to happen. But what I really like is that we finally get more of Aunt Cara in this book, and we find out more about like the Black Cottage and what happens there, because Jules takes Arsinoe to the Black Cottage where Aunt Cara is, and then Willa, who's the old midwife, she's there too. But here's where we find out Jules is kind of like, Willa is not surprised when they get there, and she knows and she sees that Arsinoe is alive, even though she was hit by the poison arrow, and it's because she knew. And Jules is like, what do you mean you knew? And Willa's like, midwife, no. But so we find out that she knew that the babies were switched. She helped switch them, but she says, oh, I was just doing what the queen asked of me. So, but I like that because we finally kind of find out a little bit about what happens. So that was a good part for me. Did you enjoy that part too?
Yes, I think at the cottage. It was great to see them like reunited. in a way, Arsinoe and the wife, and have Aunt Kara there, who they haven't been able to see. And I mean, Arsinoe hasn't seen her yet because she's like hanging on to life, sort of, because she was still shot, right?
Yeah.
The poison did not poison her skills, but she still has to recuperate a little bit.
Yes.
But yeah, I thought that was all really went there.
Yeah. Well, so then Mirabella kind of loses it. She goes back to Roland and she's really mad at this point. So she challenges Katherine to a duel in Indra Down, the capital. And Luca's like, are you out of your mind? What are you thinking? Challenging Katherine to a duel. And, Mirabella is just really confident because she thinks that she's going to even kill her before then and that, nothing's going to stop her now. So Madrigal and Joseph decide that they are going to go to the Black Cottage to look for Jules and Arsinoe because Madrigal figures that that's where she'll be. And then in my head, I was like, this isn't going to be good. Because Madrigal's going to go to the Black Cottage where her sister is, and she's going to have to confront her sister and tell her what's going on. Yeah. And Jules is there, so I'm sure if Madrigal doesn't, that Jules will, and be like, oh, hey, Aunt Kara, guess what your sister did, And I was like, I see a fight coming in the future.
That part is not a fun family reunion. That is the episode of Maury or something. That is a mess.
Mm-hmm. Well, so after Katherine gets back to Indra Down, there's an interesting part where she's drinking this snake root poison that's put in milk, and she drinks it, and then immediately her whole body starts to convulse and stuff because she can't really handle it. And Peter says to her, you're going to kill yourself if you keep up like this. And she says, don't be ridiculous. You cannot kill what is already dead. And little do we know, but this is actually kind of a clue at what's to come. Like, people have been calling her the undead queen because she fell down into the Brecca domain and then she came back out of it. But there's another reason for this too. And she says, she's already dead. And then she says later on, we have this awesome quote. It says, Katherine turns on him, grinning with teeth full of poison, and for a moment her vision blacks out and makes his face a void, dark and bottomless, as a pit of the Brecca domain. It does not matter. They are on my side. So you're thinking, who is this they? What is she talking about? So we kind of get a clue that something bigger is going on with Katherine. Did you kind of have any ideas of what was going on here? I was reading this and I'm like, okay, something weird is obviously going on, but I hadn't really quite figured it out yet.
I didn't at this point either. It reminded me, and I feel like I did this a lot in the last book, and I apologize, but it reminded me of Game of Thrones again. And I also thought it was really rich that Peter's like, oh, don't do that, you'll kill yourself. I'm like, really? Now you're worried about her dying? Like, to be concerned for her welfare.
He is ridiculous, but whatever. So we get to.
So he drove me crazy a lot, but
me too. He drove me crazy the whole book, but what are you gonna do? He's just that character. So yeah. Katherine agrees to this duel, right? Because they're going to have it in Indra Down. But what she says is she's going to throw a ball in Mirabella's honor the day before the duel. And I was like, okay, that's not going to be good. I know what's going to happen there, right? I feel like she's going to try and poison her. No big secret, right? And, and Katherine tells Natalia not to worry because she says Mirabella's going to be poisoned at the ball. Or Natalia says that she's not going to kill Mirabella at the ball, but Natalia wants to weaken her so that she's not as strong and can't kill Katherine during the duel. And Natalia plans to have Billy's father do it because remember she's in cahoots with Billy's father and been sleeping with him, and so she's going to have him do it. And she tells that to Genevieve, but they don't tell Katherine about it. So Katherine doesn't know. Now, this whole scene with the ball and everything kind of made me upset too, because I was like, okay, I know that they have to show face, right? Mirabella's got to make an appearance because Katherine's supposedly holding this in her honor and blah, blah, blah. But at the same time, she had to expect that Katherine was going to try something. I mean, obviously Catherine's not the one who did. Natalia did it. But even
Right.
still, you go to a poisoner ball, you've challenged the poisoner to a duel to the death. You have to expect that somebody's going to try something, right? And Mirabella is just so stupid at this ball.
She's just always very naive, though. Like, there's so many things that she did that are very naive. Even when it was like the right thing to do, it was still a naive choice. Like, when she believed Billy about the whole Arsinoe thing, like, it was a really naive choice. Like, if you really think these people are out to kill you, and this guy came from your sister's town, and he was close with her, like, you don't just take his word. And then, like, yeah, when she's like, I challenge you, and then they're like, this ball, and she's like, okay. Like, so Mirabelle just kind of makes me crazy with some of that, because she's just not, like, thinking critically. And that's, like, one of my biggest pet peeves with, like, protagonists, like, a lack of critical thinking skills. And that's how I feel about Mirabella, where I'm like, you were blessed, you got the power, but, like, because of that, it's like you never learned how to think and make good decisions.
No, and she really didn't. And it is frustrating because you're like, Mirabella, you should have seen this one coming a mile away. I mean, she does. She ends up getting weakened by Billy's father, like slips the poison in or something. And she ends up getting weakened. So the next day, you know, she's not really 100%. So she goes out there to fight. And, you know, Catherine's like, what is going on? Why isn't she really fighting with me? And by the way, Arsinoe and Jules and Madrigal and Kate and Joseph are all there, and they're hiding because they want to be there to try and help. And the idea was for Jules to see if she could use her war gift to kind of guide Catherine's knives when she throws them away from Mirabella. And it ends up being good that she's there because Mirabella is poisoned. And at some point, Katherine does realize what happened because Mirabella is not really fighting back. Well, what ends up happening during the duel is that with as weak as Mirabella is, Arsinoe, Jules, and Joseph all run out into the arena and yell to the Katherine to stop, and they all get arrested, and it's this whole thing, right? So then they throw them all into the cells in the Volroy, and Billy comes down to jail to see them, and you know, Arsinoe's like, go and look for Kara and Madrigal because they're here, and they've got Braddock with them, and they're out in the woods, and then and again, they're in jail, you know, and she's like, it's desperate. And then we have yet another really cute Billy and Arsinoe moment. Billy says, I love you, and I know you love me too. Say it. And she says, Mainlander, you can't make me say it. She's laughing. And I'm like, she is really like this super optimistic one of the group, you know, like, which is funny because she was totally the opposite of that in the first book. But in this second book, now she's the optimistic one. So it's kind of fun to see that change in her. So the Black Council meets, right, to decide what's going to happen, what's going to be done. Luca and Natalia speak privately, and they make a deal that Arsinoe and Mirabella will be executed and that Katherine will be crowned. So that's exactly the deal that they make. And Katherine, so they do a ceremony with Katherine where she gets crowned. It's not public at all. Just the Black Council is there, and the priestesses, and Billy's father, and you know, some of the Iran family. And her crown. This is crazy. They tattoo her crown onto her head. This is something that hasn't been done before this for generations. And it was Natalia's idea because she said it's a crown that will not fade and cannot be taken from her head to give to another. So she's like, this is it. We're done. She's going to be the queen crowned, and nobody else, neither of these other two girls can take it away from her. So can you imagine, like, okay, I have never gotten a tattoo, but it would be, I don't know.
This is why I don't have any tattoos. This is why I don't have any, because eventually you will regret that. Like, that is not going to work out for her. You know what I mean? Like, you don't get, you only get tattoos that you are 100% sure will always be meaningful to you. And her two sisters are still alive, which is a giant sign that you should not get this tattoo on your face.
Right? But she thinks it's going to be fine because she thinks they're both going to be dead because she doesn't know yet. She doesn't know that Arsinoe is a poisoner. She has no clue. So so the whole ceremony happens,
she
right?
She knows they're alive.
Yes, but they're supposed to be executed. So she thinks like,
Yes.
they're
I'm
gonna-
just saying, when there is still a chance you do not get a face tattoo, like, there's just no way. None.
there's no way it can end well, right? It's just kind of like
No.
impending doom.
Yes, like you were gonna end up not being the queen because you got that face tattoo. Like,
Mm-mm. It's
no,
so crazy.
I was like, no, don't let them tattoo a crown on your face.
Oh, but she does. Well, then she decides she's going to go down to the cells in the Volride to see her sisters and kind of, brag about it and say, hey, look, I'm the queen. You two are the losers, right? So she goes down there to tell them all of this. And then what's really cool is Katherine, like there's this moment and it says, such darkness comes into Katherine's eyes that Arsinoe sinks back onto flat feet. Again, she thinks that there is something not right about Katherine, something off, and she doesn't know why, but she is certain that the Arons do not know what it is. So again, we have this hint of like something weird is really going on with Katherine, but we don't know what it is. And we know that kind of like Natalia and Genevieve and even Peter don't really know what it is yet, but there's something there. So Katherine, she goes down there, right? And she tells them that she's going to kill Arsinoe right then and there, and that Mirabella is going to be executed in the square the next morning, right? So she has 2 guards with her. She forces Arsinoe to drink this poison. And this is actually really funny. Mirabella puts on some fantastic acting skills in this scene because she is like wailing and crying and yelling and putting on this whole show because Mirabella knows that Arsinoe's not going to die. And so she puts on this whole thing. Arsinoe's like coughing and, gasping for air. And, then she pretends like she's dead and Mirabella's weeping and it's this whole thing. They put on this huge scene and it's really kind of funny because as the reader, you know what they're doing, So then eventually Katherine and the guards leave and then Arsinoe sits back up like, hey, I think that was pretty good. Yeah, we did pretty well. I think we convinced him, She's like, oh, still not dead. Meanwhile, Billy's dad is really, 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 really mad about what happened because, what I forgot to say was when Katherine gets crowned, she chooses Nicholas to be her king consort. And Billy's dad is mad because he and Natalia had made an arrangement that Billy would be the king consort, not Nicholas. So he goes to see Natalia. He's really, really drunk and he's very angry and he wants Natalia to undo it, but she won't. And so they fight. He starts choking her. He comes up behind her to choke her and she smashes his head with a paperweight and falls on the ground. And then it's funny because he's killing her, right? And she thinks, I cannot end like this. I am Natalia Aron. How egotistical that you're you know what I mean? I'm Natalia. I can't go out like this. Like, who does that? Who thinks about that when they're being killed? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know about you, but I would not be thinking, I'm Leah Stuhler. I can't die like this. I need a more regal death. You know what I mean? Like, I would just be like fighting for my life. Dear Jesus, please help me. You know what I mean? Like,
don't kill me.
Shows you. Oh my gosh, the egos on the Aron family. But anyway, she dies. He kills Natalia. He chokes her to death. Then Ro, who's one of the high priestesses, comes in and she sees it. But she's smart though. Like this is where she thought about what she did before she did it. Unlike Peter earlier, before he tossed Katherine down to the Brecca domain, Ro goes over, checks Natalia to see if there's a pulse first. There's not. Then she stabs Billy's dad and kills him. And I was like, okay, well, at least she checked first, Then she kills Billy's dad. Yeah. So, and Ro is war gifted as well. And what's fun is we see more of Ro's war gift later on in the next couple of books. So anyway, so what happens then is Mirabella and Arsinoe, they plan this whole escape, how to leave the island. And of course we have this argument, we tried this before and it didn't work. And Mirabella's like, well, we're going to try again. We're still alive for a reason. So when the guards come in to get Arsinoe's body, she's, of course, pretends that she's dead. And then her and Mirabella attack them, and they knock the guards out. They get the keys, and they go and let Jules and Joseph and Camden out. I didn't mention that earlier. Camden is with them as well because he's always with her. So they go and they let them out. And then this is when, Katherine and Nicholas go to Gravestrake to have their wedding night, and she kills them while they sleep together because she's so full of poison.
Accidentally.
It was an accident.
Accidentally.
She didn't know.
Yes.
Yeah. And, it says, poor Nicholas, he lay with the queen and he died for it. And it is kind of sad. And it's sad, too, because Katherine realizes just how much damage that she's done to herself. She realizes that because her body is poison, she's not going to be able to bear the triplets. So essentially,
here's my question. Haven't all the queens for like the last however many generations been poisoner queens?
They have, but they've been true poisoners.
So it's not like in her body as much. Like, so is this when she realizes she's not really a poisoner? Because that's where I got confused. Because she knew her mom was a poisoner queen.
I don't think that she realizes here that she's not a poisoner. I don't, because I think that she just realized that because of how much poison she has ingested, that it's like even like seeps out of her pores, that she has filled herself with so much poison because her body can't handle it, that's why she won't be able to have the triplets. It's just that her body can't handle it. She has just become poison in a way, which is different because the other poisoner queens are true poisoners, so their body can handle it and they're fine. It doesn't affect the poisoner queens, but because she's not a true poisoner, it's different for her. So I think that's what it is.
Okay. I will accept it.
Okay.
But that did bother me a little in the book where I'm like, I was like, figure it out. I think I was kind of rooting for her to be like, put it together. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
If your mom did it, you should be able to, so figure it out. And then I was like, does the soup be a poisoner? Does that, like, I get all into like the very technical aspects, I guess, of the poisoner courtship.
No, it makes sense.
Let's do a deep dive here on this.
Well, the funny thing too is I think that it doesn't really ever get talked about. I don't think like at the end of this one or even in the next two books, like it's kind of flippantly mentioned, but I don't think it's ever really detailed in depth about Katherine realizing that she's really a weak naturalist and not a poisoner. She just like, there's never really this aha moment where she talks about it. So it's kind of weird.
Okay.
I don't know. But
and this is as far as I've read, actually.
Oh, you haven't read the next two? Oh, you have to read the next two books. You have to see what happens. Oh, they're good. They're good.
I know.
So poor Katherine. And then, so Jules and Joseph and Mirabella and Arsinoe, fight their way out of the Volroy. Joseph gets injured as they're fighting, and they get up to the main floor, and Billy is there, and he's there with these warriors who are from Bastion City, which is where those who are war gifted live. And they had come to the duel because they had learned about Jules and they wanted to see her. And so this is where we meet Amelia, is her name. She is a war gifted. And so anyway, they all go out into the courtyard together and they fight the guards and they get out of the Volroy, and then they all get onto this barge that Amelia and her father came on, and they're going to leave, right? Well, I'm going to skip one part and then comes back. So they get on this barge and everyone's like, Joseph, you're injured. We need to wrap this up. They're trying to figure out what to do. And Joseph keeps brushing off his wound, right? Oh, it's just a scratch. Do you know what happens every time somebody in a TV show or a movie or a book gets hurt and they say, oh, it's just a scratch? Like every time that person dies, right? Like every time. Were you thinking this?
I don't want to say I was hoping he would die, but I think it couldn't happen to a nicer guy. You know what I mean? Like if somebody had to, I'm okay.
Yeah, I actually got to say I wasn't totally disappointed.
I understand having to sacrifice a main character.
Yeah. If somebody had to go.
Sacrifice the main character for the greater good. And he was not giving me anything productive.
Nope.
So you can't have Jules die. You can't have Ars die, right?
Right. Not after all they've
Like,
gone through.
no, you can't have them die.
Mm-mm.
So, not ideal.
Right.
But then Jules can move on.
Yeah. And you know what's funny is she kind of does pretty quickly. Like, well, okay, not in a emotional detachment from Joseph type of sense, but what happens is, so he dies on the boat as they're trying to. There's this big storm. They're trying to get through the mist so that they can get off of the island, and he dies on the boat during that whole time. And she's with him, and he dies in her arms, and it's this whole moment. But Amelia, before they left, Amelia had said, I want you to come with us to Bastion City. And Jules said, no, I have to stay with Arsinoe. I have to be with her. So Amelia and her father left and went on their way while everybody else got on the boat to head for the mainland. But after Joseph dies, as soon as he dies, Jules is like, all right, abandoning ship. She tells Arsinoe, you don't need me anymore. You have everybody else by your side. You've got Mirabella. You've got Billy. You're going to the mainland. You'll be fine. She jumps off the side of the boat and starts swimming away like she's going to go to Bastion City. And that's it. Like, she leaves. Joseph's body is there on the ship. She leaves everybody, jumps overboard. Arsinoe's screaming after her. And Jules is like, nope, just swimming away. I'm gone. See ya. And I was like, really? Like, that's it?
Yeah, I thought that was super weird.
Yeah.
Like, I just felt so out of character. Like, she's like, no, I have to go with Arsinoe. I have to go with Arsinoe. And then Joseph dies, and she's like, nah, Arsinoe, you get it. All right, I'm going to go, like, follow my dreams. Like, I get it on the one hand. Like you said, like, I wanted her to move on, but it just felt like the character to be like, Jules is not, like, a person that makes, like, bold decisions a lot. Like, she hasn't made any bold decisions in the last. She's made very safe decisions.
Yeah.
And so, like, for me, there's a disconnect between, like, Joseph dying and her, like, finding herself to, like, make the bold decisions. I'm not necessarily opposed to it, and I understand that it happened for the progression of the next books, which I have not read. But I was just kind of like, where did this Jules come from? Like, where was that character development that I missed?
Right. And I just felt like it was weird because she has been throughout both the first book and the second book. She was so dedicated and so loyal to Arsinoe and being there with her and protecting her. And then it was just like, oh, Joseph's dead. Okay, I'm going to leave now. Like, I mean, I feel like it would have, for me, it would have felt a little bit better if she had gone to the mainland with them, and then maybe like after they were on the mainland for a little bit, said, okay, you're good, you're settled, I'm going to leave now. So this just seems like,
yes,
it was just really sudden. And I was like, what? This is crazy.
It was uncertain. Like, don't you want to make sure they get there safely? Like,
yeah.
To just want them in the middle of like a big situation, and like you have like powers that can help them potentially. Right. Like, I don't know, maybe like scream at the water. Like, let's try some stuff out.
Yeah, it was kind of crazy.
So I thought that was a little odd and a little like, wait, what just happened?
I don't know. It was really weird, but oh well. But yeah. That's actually the very end of the book when he dies and she jumps off the boat. But what happens a little bit before that is Genevieve goes in and she finds Peter had come in and he was looking for Katherine. He went into Katherine's rooms and he saw Nicholas and, she told him what happened. And then Genevieve comes in and she's, and she's kind of shocked and like, what the heck happened here? And then Genevieve tells Katherine and Peter that Natalia was murdered by Billy's dad. And then this scene was just like boom, 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 one thing after another. Peter comes in. He sees Nicholas dead, accidentally poisoned by Katherine. Genevieve comes in. She sees it and is like, holy cow, what are we going to do with this? Then she has to tell them that Natalia has been murdered. Oh, my goodness, right? Poor Katherine, because Natalia was like a mother to her. Then a messenger comes in and says, oh, guess what? The queens and their friends have escaped. They're all gone from the prison. And they're like, are you kidding me? This like within a matter of like one page, I'm telling you, it like all this stuff happens and you're like, what is going on? So anyway, they come up with this whole plan to disguise Nicholas's death and they want to chase the queens and kill them and figure out what happens. But of course, they can't find them, so they don't know where they've gone. And then one of them says, Katherine will be the queen crowned. It is just that she will be the last queen. So, because again, she's not going to be able to bear the triplets. So this is how this book ends. We have a couple more dead people, and we know that Katherine won't be able to have any children, so she will end up being the last queen with carrying on this tradition. And then no more triplets are going to happen. And then we have Joseph's dead, and Arsinoe and Mirabella and Billy are off on the mainland, and Jules is going off to Bastion City to be with the war gifted. Why can't I say it? To be with the war gifted. And so she left some pretty big loose ends here at the end of this one. There's kind of a lot. What was your overall impression of the book and kind of all that happened?
I liked it. I feel like it was more of what I almost thought the first one was going to be like.
Mm-hmm.
The first one was a little set up to the actual, and so I felt like I was hungry for it, especially by the time we got to the second book, because I was like, okay, let's get to some action. And so I definitely thought it was good that there was some action. I thought that, like I said, I thought it was really interesting that there were all these almost resolution moments that just floated almost immediately. There's a real roller coaster of emotions for a lot of things. And it's interesting, I know that all young adult books like to have their triangles and things, but I almost feel it doesn't serve this series that much.
Yeah. I mean,
I think it serves it as a plot device with the whole Mirabella thing with regards to the bear attacking her. But outside of that, didn't need as much. Like you said, it was oh, please take me back. And that didn't lend anything. So I was kind of done with it. And I think that's why I was glad he died, because then I knew we weren't going to have that conversation anymore. You know what I mean?
Yes, I totally agree.
We're done with that now.
Great. We can move on. This is gone. Awesome.
Yeah.
Let's focus on other things. So,
yeah. Even I like the way the one with Katherine turned out, but it's she spent the whole time screwing with Peter by being with Nicholas, and then when she picks him, he dies instantly. Mm-hmm. And so it was another these weird love triangles that just kind of don't go anywhere because someone dies.
Well, and too, because she can't marry Peter because of the laws. It's set up weird. Right. She can't marry him, so she can't ever really, he can't be her king consort either. At most, he could just be her lover. I mean, it's just this weird situation. But yeah, again, so at the end of this, like I said before, when the messenger comes in and says Arsinoe and Mirabella escaped, Katherine is shocked. But I didn't feel like we got this recognition of, okay, so I've tried to poison Arsinoe twice now, and she has lived. So she must be a poisoner. That means I'm a naturalist. We don't really have that recognition in it. So it was just kind of weird. But I don't know. Because then again, it doesn't.
And with the lack of critical thinking.
Yes. Yeah, on Katherine's part too. Either that or it was just... Right. I don't know. Maybe it was just a choice that Kendare Blake made for some reason. Maybe her snake sweetheart is enough of a realization for I don't know. Who knows? But it was just
even that no one else figured it out. I would have thought Genevieve would have figured it out too.
Yeah, because Genevieve is really smart and she figures that stuff out. So you would have thought, but no, I don't know.
Very smart and very good at critical thinking and very good at manipulating people, figuring out people's motivations. So for her not to have the moment where she's you shot her, and then to be hey, how did you kill her in the cells? Okay, you poisoned her? How much poison? A lot of I feel like Genevieve would have used her investigative skills to really sniff out what happened there and ask a lot of questions.
I agree. But that's not what happens. I don't know. That was just the one little thing that kind of bothered me. I was like, oh man. But I had seen some people talking online about this series and how, like you said, they were expecting a first book to kind of be what this one was, with all the action and, trying to kill each other. And that was before I even read them. But I was like, okay, I'm going to read these anyway, because I've also seen really good things about them. And so, yeah, book 1 is just a total setup, and then you get to book 2. But see, when I realized that there were 4 books in the series, I was like, oh, all right, I get it now. So this will be okay that book 1 is total setup and leading into the other ones, because we've got 3 more books to figure out what's going to happen. So yeah, but I really liked it. And you need to go and read book 3 and book 4 so you can finish it and see what happens. So it'll be fun.
I will definitely do that.
All right, good. All right. Well, I think that's going to conclude us for today. But thank you so much for being here again, Christine. It was super fun. And thank you, everybody, for listening. And be sure to check out these books. And we will my next episode, we will be talking about book 3 in this series. All right. Thanks, everybody. And we will chat again soon. Hey, everyone. Me again. So I realized after editing this that Christine and I completely neglected to tell you about what the dark secret that Katherine has is. So here it is. Katherine, when she fell down into the Brecca domain, ended up, instead of dying, the spirits of the dead queens who had all been thrown down into the pit after they were killed, their spirits inhabited Katherine. So now she has all these dead queens within her. So she really is the undead queen. And Peter figured that out because he goes back to the Brecca domain because he realizes something is extremely wrong with Katherine. And he goes down there himself, and he gets the sense of the spirits that are still down there. And he realizes that some of them invaded Katherine and that's what's going on with her. And he confronts her about it right before Genevieve comes in, after he's found Katherine in the room with Nicholas's dead body in the bed. And they talk about it, and she does reveal to him, yes, I have these dead queens' spirits living within my body, and they are trying to take over, and they're kind of making her into somebody new. So, wanted to give you that piece of information that I somehow forgot to include, because you are definitely going to need to know that for our discussion on book 3. All right, thanks so much, everybody. And please remember to find YA Book Chat on Instagram and Facebook. And be sure to like and subscribe. And if you could, please also give me a 5-star rating. Those ratings and reviews really help a lot. Thanks, everybody. Today's episode featured the book One Dark Throne by Kendare Blake. YA Book Chat is hosted and edited by me, Leah Stuhler.